Hey guys, how's it going? Danconia, and welcome back to the Overwatch League Roundup 2020 Week 15 results. So this was the final week of regular fixtures before the May tournament, the May Melee. And it's going to be very interesting because now we know where these teams are seeded. We know we don't know who they're going to be taking on in NA, but we know who in Asia will be taking on each other. And this week has been very interesting because we have seen some weird results. Let's just say that. But without further ado, let's get into it. And on Saturday, we saw the Seoul Dynasty taking on the Chengdu Hunters. And I talked about weird results. And it starts out weird, let's be honest. 3-0 for the Chengdu Hunters. Who would have thought of that coming through to this week? But what we have seen a lot more of this week is that funny little woman in the air called Echo. And it's kind of been boom or bust for a lot of teams. And once again, we know how Seoul... They didn't play the Echo a lot themselves, which is good. We don't want to see Seoul do that. But again, they had trouble dealing with the Chengdu Hunters. They really, really did. They looked all over the place and completely off once again. And it's really worrying from Seoul. They give us the flashes of a really, really, really good team, and then they just slap us with this sort of result. It's not good, and it means that they actually end up, I think, as the bottom seed in Asia, which is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So, Seoul is just a really weird one. I don't know why they're being so darn inconsistent. They had one match this week against the Chengdu Hunters. It should not have been that difficult. The Chengdu Hunters had two matches. They had to prepare for the Guangzhou Charge as well. So, it's disappointing from the Seoul Dynasty this. And, yeah, it's not exactly put them in the most brilliant of positions going into the May Melee. But, moving on. And next up, we have the London Spitfire taking on the Shanghai Dragons. So... no one really expected London to get anything out of this, and they don't. It's a 3-0 win for Shanghai Dragons. Shanghai just had way too much quality. You could see at times some coaching coming through for the London Spitfire, but what is infuriating about this Spitfire side, and we'll talk more about it at the second match as well, is that they are so passive. I don't think I have seen a team as passive as this current London Spitfire squad in the 3 years the Overwatch League has been a thing. You've got teams that can't coordinate when to go in and stuff like that, but Spitfire are so passive, and sometimes it works. But a lot of the time they're just completely caught out, and they're just bleeding time off the clock half the time. It's so weird. And it would be nice for London to kind of iron these issues out, you would think, considering the time they have between week 4 and week 14. They would have kind of got the balance right, but it doesn't seem to be working, and they got caught out a lot here against the Shanghai Dragons. The earlier maps were closer, but yeah, there's some skill there for the Spitfire. This is the thing. The Spitfire are not a completely Papega squad. There is some skill in that squad, but they're just not applying it right a lot of the time. They're not capitalizing on advantages well enough or anything. So yeah, it's really weird, but Shanghai Dragons are good for their 3-0 win. New York Excelsior would face the Hangzhou Spark next. This would not be as easy for New York as they would have thought it would have been, but it was a 3-1 win for New York Excelsior in the end. New York had to pull some things out of the bag here because Hangzhou Spark really gave a good account of themselves. Some of the best Hangzhou Spark play I've seen so far, and Hangzhou Spark have picked up Architect now, which is going to be very, very interesting and a massive addition to this squad. So Hangzhou are steadily improving. And it's up to the teams like Chengdu, I know that's a bit harsh on them considering their result this week, London, to actually keep up with the improvements that the Guangzhou Charge have made recently, and the Hangzhou Spark are now seeming to make. But it's a good win for New York Excelsior, and it seals them one of the higher spots in the Asia tournament. But we move to North America now, and it's time for the Vancouver Titans taking on the Houston Outlaws. We know how bad Vancouver were last week, and this is a 3-0 for the Houston Outlaws. What troubled me is it looked like Vancouver had actually got a little bit worse, which is not great. You don't really want to look worse than when you didn't have a week to practice. Yeah, not much to say about that. Houston Outlaws played Hydration on the main tank the entire time, and he didn't just play Orisa because Orisa wasn't there. So he played Ball and Reinhardt and Winston and did not look out of his depth whatsoever. It's not a brilliant look for Vancouver, I am not going to lie. But this is good for the Houston Outlaws. This is exactly what I expect them to do with something like this. And yeah, what can we say, Vancouver? What can we say? The organization kind of brought it on themselves, really, didn't they? But moving on, Florida Mayhem taking on the Washington Justice. Now, the Washington Justice had just picked up Stitch and Jano at this time, and they were straight in the squad, as you would expect. So there was a problem here because obviously Washington are in NA, and I believe Stitch and Jano probably would have been playing on ping. So there was that issue, but they looked decent. They looked decent, but the problem is they're not really, pardon the pun, but stitched into that squad very well at the moment. They will get better with time, but a 3-1 for the Florida Mayhem will actually seal Florida Mayhem a very high seeding in this May tournament. I think that is the only map Mayhem have dropped. I may be wrong throughout May, but yeah, very good from Florida. Very good from Florida. Yaki absolutely was fantastic on the Echo. And, well, I mean, one of the clips of the weekend was Yaki's three shatters during his Echo ult on Kings Row. I'm sure you will probably see that one. But there was really good play all around from Florida Mayhem, Gangnam Jin. You've got Fate on the main tank as well, although we did get caught out once. And then there's BKB, who was doing really well as well. Washington Justice, I wouldn't be too upset about it. It's just a case of there's going to be a period of adjustment to get Stitch and Janny properly welded into the squad. But once they do, I think Washington Justice's future is actually pretty bright. But moving on, and yeah, Los Angeles Gladiators, Boston Uprising. This is, in my opinion, Toilet Bowl 2. So, Toilet Bowl 1 was Boston Uprising versus the Houston Outlaws very, very early in the season. You may not totally recall it. It was an absolute Pepega fest. I think there was 2 draws in that match. It was 7 maps, and Houston ended up winning it 3-2 or something, or Boston ended up winning it 3-2. I don't know. But it was not good Overwatch, and this was not brilliant Overwatch either. Boston Uprising had obviously just signed Punk. Their new off-tank, Bruceson, had obviously left. Gladiators, like, how? How does this happen? 3-2 for the Boston Uprising. Yeah, I don't think a lot of us would have predicted that one. It was 6 maps. There was a draw on Hanamura. And Boston Uprising won the match with only winning 1 map type. Control. They only won Control. And they won the match. Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh dear. Los Angeles Gladiators, what are we going to do with you? This should have been a win, Gladiators. There's no sugarcoating it. There's no getting around it. This is not a good result. This is a very, very bad result. But I'm not going to dwell on the Gladiators too much. I'm not going to dwell on it too much. I will, however, dwell on the Boston Uprising. They did look improved. Punk looks like a good addition. Color Hex was popping off. We finally got to see some good play from Fusions as well, which I think Fusions was being enabled by Punk a lot. And so, if they can build off this, then maybe, just maybe, there is a glimmer of hope for Boston. And need we forget Jerry, who is always good. But Jerry was popping off in this match as well. And so, Boston finally get a win. But it is not clean. But what it does mean is they are not a bottom 2 seed in the May Melee tournament. So congratulations to the Boston Uprising, and we will see if they can make that last. But next up will be the San Francisco Shock taking on the Atlanta Reign. This is very surprising. I thought Atlanta Reign would put up a fight here, but Shock came out all guns blazing. This was impressive from the Shock. Seriously impressive. This looked like the Shock from last year. They absolutely made Atlanta look silly. They really, really did. Rascal, what are we going to do with you, man? Is Rascal stoppable on the Echo? I haven't found a person that can stop Rascal on the Echo yet. It's very, very impressive what he's been doing. And Shock get the 3-0. But yeah, this was just very one-sided. And I think it's just credit to the Shock for just being so darn good. They were really, really well practiced, and Atlanta just didn't have the response for it. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to shut it down. ANS and Rascal were just running riot. They really, really were. And so was Joy Yobin. And so was Violet. And so was Moss. And so was Super or Smurf, whoever was playing on which map, because they played both of them. Shock. They're looking like the top team. They're looking like a top team once more. Right up there with Philly. Right up there with perhaps Shanghai and New York. And I honestly think NA is looking pretty strong right now compared to Asia as well, because we've seen New York and Shanghai stumble. We haven't really seen Shock stumble since that first week, and we haven't really seen Philly stumble either. So, yeah, very interesting. But moving on, Guangzhou Charge taking on Chengdu Hunters. We're on to the Sunday now. Now, Guangzhou Charge had a phenomenal week last week, and they continue the wins into this week, but it is not easy. They get a 3-2 win over the Chengdu Hunters, which this week for Chengdu Hunters, if someone had said to me they would get a 3-0 win against Seoul Dynasty and a 3-2 loss against Guangzhou Charge, I would have laughed. So this has actually been a really good week for the Chengdu Hunters. Ameng's looked good. They've all looked good, actually. Leave has looked really, really good. Looked really, really, really good. But I think also the meta's favoured Chengdu slightly, because we've actually seen a fair bit of a ball diva dive, which really obviously plays into Chengdu's hands. We all know how much they like to run the ball. But it's not enough in the end, and Guangzhou Charge, this is a good display, because Guangzhou Charge, they didn't have it easy here, and they managed to grind out the win, meaning that they seal the top seed in Asia, and they actually get that bye, which means they've automatically, I believe, got one win on the board, just because of that bye in that round. So massive result for Guangzhou Charge, and no one would have predicted they would have been in this position at the start of this month. But moving on, Hangzhou Spark taking on the London Spitfire. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Hangzhou Spark get a 3-0 here. London, this is very, very bad. This is not a good display. They put on a better display against Shanghai than they did against Hangzhou, and it's just not good. This is the London I saw in this Hangzhou Spark game. Honestly, could be some of the plays were worst team in the league sort of displays. The tanks were all over the place. JMac and Celestin it was at times. We also saw Jihan at the start of the match on Busan, and he did nothing. The tanks were all over the place. There was one point on Temple of Anubis where the JMac and Celestin had found themselves in the back line, and the rest of the Spitfire team was still in the choke. I don't know. The coordination was all over the place. It's shockingly bad from London Spitfire this match. Shockingly bad. In a match where I thought London Spitfire could make it close. And I wonder whether it's over-concentration on the Shanghai match or something. It would be worrying if it is. And I do wonder whether London might be able to do better when they are able to concentrate on one match a week. Which is not good. That's not good. But I wonder whether they will. And perhaps going into June, we might see them not have as many games in a week. But yeah, this is really bad from London, but really good from Hangzhou. Godspeed was really doing well. And I think Hangzhou Spark are only going to improve with the addition of Architect. So, promising times for the team in pink. But we have 3 more to go through. Dallas Fuel taking on the Paris Eternal is next. And I thought this was going to be close, but as ever, Dallas Fuel let me down. Ay. They got outplayed by Paris, let's be honest. There were some good plays, but Paris were just better. Ben Best, alongside, obviously, Hanbin. Fielder was good again. FD God was amazing this match. Nico was really good on the Echo. And actually, Paris are one of the only teams we've seen do the Echo with the Mercy Pocket. And actually it worked fairly well, I believe, on Temple of Anubis, if I am correct in quoting that map, where it happened. Doha and Decay did not have the impact that they usually have for the Fuel here. And unfortunately that leads to the Fuel losing the match quite heavily, which is a shame because I thought the Fuel actually had a lot of scope for perhaps making that very close or even nicking a win off the Paris Eternal there. But it does mean that Dallas Fuel will be in line to play the Florida Mayhem if they can beat the opponent that they're up against, but we don't know who they're up against yet. So, moving on to that next match, Philadelphia Fusion taking on the Vancouver Titans. Oh yes, we got to see it, didn't we? chips are. Albeit for one map on the map of Oasis, we got to see the chips of Doomfist, and he got to have some very good fights, and he also got to punch off the map and fall into the sea. So it was a mixed bag for Chipser, but at least I think he actually did get play of the game. On the Doomfist, he did actually have some really good moments, but we have to remember he was up against the Vancouver Titans. And let's be honest, the Fusion were trash talking the Titans after that. But this is a 3-0 for the Philadelphia Fusion. You'd expect no less. The skill gap between these two teams is absolutely monumental. And it showed. And I'm starting to wonder now whether Vancouver Titans might actually be worse than Boston. And, didn't think I'd be saying that. But the last match of the weekend was Toronto Defiant taking on the Los Angeles Valiant. This will be a 3-2 win for the Los Angeles Valiant. I predicted this to be very close. I believe Valiant took a 2-0 lead early on, and then Toronto brought it back, or it might be the other way round. But I actually believe that this Los Angeles Valiant side is fairly decent. KSP looked good again. Shax looked good. Dreamer actually had a really good match here. My question for Toronto Defiant is, where was Shawfor? I don't know where he was, but he certainly didn't play. And I'm actually impressed that Toronto Defiant made it so close without Shawfor, because they tend to rely on him a lot. But it was a close match, but Valiant get the win, and actually that means Valiant get one of the top seeds in NA as well. I believe the top seeds in NA are San Francisco, Florida Mayhem, Los Angeles Valiant, and someone else, and I can't remember who it is. But those are the top seeds in Europe, in NA, I should say. If only there was a European region, imagine that. And in Asia, Guangzhou take the top spot, closely followed up by the likes of New York, Shanghai. Then the bottom seed is Seoul, the second bottom seed is London, and then you've got Chengdu. So it's going to be very interesting. I'm going to be keeping a very close eye to see how this melee works out, because I think it may be better for NA rather than Asia, because I worry, because of the additional wins you get for winning the tournament and stuff like that, whether it might make Asia look a little bit better than it actually is, or the Asian teams look better than they actually are. So yeah, it's going to be interesting, and we'll see whether this format works. But next week will be the main melee. It will be the start of that tournament. The first match will be Vancouver Titans taking on the Toronto Defiant, because that is the bottom seed 13th place match that decides which one of them will be going through to face one of the lower seeds in the tournament, whether that be Dallas or someone like that. Atlanta Reign, Paris Eternal, I think, is one of them as well. We will see what happens. To round this off, we will take a look at the overall standings for a very brief minute, and at the top we still have the Philadelphia Fusion, closely followed by the Shanghai Dragons. In third we have the San Francisco Shock. New York will finish out the top four. Florida Mayhem are still in fifth, maintaining that high spot. Paris Eternal in sixth, round out the top playoff spots. Guangzhou all the way up to seventh now. Atlanta Reign in eighth. Seoul all the way down in ninth. Hangzhou Spark up to 10th. Los Angeles Valiant in 11th, coupled with their Los Angeles Gladiators neighbours in 12th. London are the big fallers this week, going all the way down to 13th. Dallas Fuel are in 14th, Houston Outlaws up to 15th, Toronto Defiant in 16th, Chengdu Hunters in 17th, Vancouver in 18th, Washington in 19th, and Boston Uprising in 20th. But something to be aware of, the Vancouver Titans now have the same amount of wins as Boston. We will see. We will see. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, give it a like, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you in the next video. See you then.